Hello, this is Bill Baldwin of Boulevard Realty with an update on flood maps. Please be aware that the Harris County flood maps are about to change. In fact, the way flood maps will be determined is totally new and revolutionary. Make yourself aware of the process and the timeline at Map Next. Map Next stands for Harris County Modeling, Assessment, and Awareness Project, the first of its kind in the nation. It's the next generation of flood mapping using new methodologies, new technology, and new data. The new maps will be released in early 2025, and thousands of homes in Harris County are expected to be added to both the 100 and 500-year floodplains. Likewise, many homes may no longer be in the 100 or 500-year floodplains. After the announcement, there will be a period of 6 to 9 months of education and input. The adoption is not likely until late 2025 at the earliest. Please keep up to date and refer to Map Next on the Harris County Flood Control website.
HAR TV has expanded and we're now offering video services at 4 locations. Our Fort Bend branch located at 6608 Greatwood Parkway in Sugar Land. Our Montgomery County branch located at 25700 I-45 North in Spring. Our Bay Area branch located at 17225 El Camino Real in Bay Area. And our original location at HAR Central located at 3693 Southwest Freeway in Houston. All 4 locations offer all the same high quality video production that you have always experienced here at our central location. Contact us today to get your video appointment scheduled at any one of our 4 locations.
As realtors, we help our clients with all sorts of matters, including how to find available resources that may assist with the down payment. We are proud to announce that Down Payment Resource is now available on HAR.com. This will allow consumers to find out if they meet the criteria for any of the 70 different assistance programs available in the greater Houston region. Some programs are income-based, but many allow higher incomes than you may think. There are also programs specific for people in certain professions, such as police officers, firefighters, teachers, healthcare workers, and others. About 89% of all listings for sale in Houston qualify for some sort of down payment. To find out more, you may visit www.har.com/down payment and work with your realtor to make sure you have everything you need to be able to purchase the home of your dreams.
Good morning and welcome to Member Focus Monday. I'm Christina Schaefer, Director of Social Media for HAR, and I'm very pleased to be joined this morning by George Barro and Yanling Mayer with the Real Estate Center at Texas A&M University. They are here at, believe it or not, everyone, we are getting to the end of Q1 of 2025 already. So they are here to give us a look into both the macroeconomic status that we have going on, but also dialing in a little bit closely to real estate, specifically in Texas and Houston. Let us know what we've seen in Q1 and maybe what to expect for the remainder of 2025. So George, Yanling, welcome to the program. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Christina.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into everything, we'd love to hear a little bit about you, just who you are and what you do. Yanling, we'll start with you on this one.
Great. Well, Christina, thank you for having us. I recently joined the Texas Real Estate Center here at Texas A&M. So I started in January, and I'm, I think a couple of weeks ahead of George. My background has been in the housing space for the last decade and a half, so it's been a long time. And when this incredible opportunity, come up here at the center, so I'm so excited to be here, and I look forward to be focusing on all about the Texas real estate, the Texas housing market.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And George?
Yeah, thanks, Christina. So I'm also a research economist here at the Texas Real Estate Research Center. So my background is in macroeconomics and policy. I spent several years at Rice University's Baker Institute of Public Policy, where we looked at a lot of things, ranging from the macroeconomic outlook and how it would impact the regional economy here in Texas and in the Houston area. But I've also studied demographics, and I think it's a key factor when considering things like, will Texas be able to sustain the growth that it's had in the last few years? And so we're answering a lot of these questions, and we're researching a lot of these questions, and we hope to shed some light on how these kind of macroeconomic factors and demographic factors will continue to impact local markets in the years to come.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much both for the work you are doing, and we love that we get to hear from you and maybe call on you again in the future to hear more from you. Yanling, as you are probably well aware, everyone in the real estate space gets very excited about the spring home buying season. It gets very active. So far, what are you seeing? How is the spring home buying season shaping up so far?
Yes, absolutely. It's such an important question because the spring is not only a prime home buying season for the home buyers, right? Families plan to move, and they want to be settled in during the summer, before the school starts. So it's a very important time of the year for all the prospective home buyers out there. But it is also a critical time in the housing market. The activities in the spring generally sets the tone for the rest of the year. The activities, the signals from the consumers about how they feel about the economy, about their job securities, about their finances. So that all that signal gets sent throughout this home buying activity. And then on the builder's end, they receive the feedback from the spring buying activities. So they incorporate that information to the planning for the coming season, for the new housing starts. So that cycle goes on, right? So spring is a critical time. And I'm glad we are here talking about the spring, how the market is shaking up.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. So to continue, what we are seeing in the data is that I think it's been happening with throughout the rest of the U.S. as well. We are seeing accelerations in the listings. Not only the new listings are coming into the market at accelerated pace, but the existing inventory. So you have the new listings plus the existing inventory. That has been increasing at double digits. We've seen that sign back actually in December. But the fourth quarter, the tail end of 2024 was such a strong quarter. Home sales were rising at double digits. So at the same time, seeing this inventory rising, it was a good sign, right? You have sales going strong, and also at the same time, you have inventory rising. But we are 3 months into the year. The sales data coming in for January and February seems to be indicating sales haven't kept up with that momentum that we saw in the fourth quarter. So all eyes will be on inventory. amid this weakness in the sales.
Okay, thank you so much. George, looking at things from, the macroeconomic outlook, what are you seeing? I know we always hear, I feel like every year, the word recession. Is this happening? Is this not happening? Especially the last couple of years. So, are we heading into a recession?
Yeah, that's right, Christina. There's an old joke that economists say that economists have predicted 9 out of the last 5 recessions, indicating that we're sometimes a little bit too quick to call an early recession. What we're actually seeing is definitely a slowdown. You see it in labor markets, in certain places in labor markets. You see a slowdown in hiring. But what we're not seeing yet is kind of these very characteristic signs of a recession, which are things like an increase in the unemployment rate, a severe slowdown in output and in GDP. So until we start to see signs of that, I'm hesitant to say that we're on the verge of a recession. And it's kind of surprising, but one of the best predictors of a pending recession is actually just the amount of time since the last recession. And so we actually had a recession in 2020. We're about 5 years out from the pandemic. Exactly 5 years ago, we were in recession, but we've only been in recession for 2 months out of the last 16 years. So what we do know about recessions is that they're happening less frequently. And there are a number of reasons why that might be happening. We're getting better at kind of managing the U.S. economy, the macro economy, and there are a number of things that we're doing with regards to financial markets to stabilize the economy. But we definitely do see some weakening. But I guess the good news is that overall, Houston seems to be outperforming most other areas, and we're still experiencing a large inflow of residents to the Houston area. And until I see signs of, that significantly slowing down, I would be hesitant to say that there's any pending recession.
Okay, so a slowdown does not equal a recession, is what you're saying.
Yeah,
here.
that's an important distinction. The economy could be slowing down, but it might not sort of rise to the level of a recession.
Okay, very good. Yanling, as you're watching the real estate space, are there any developments specifically in housing or in mortgage that you believe are worth keeping an eye on as we, kind of look to the rest of 2025?
Yes, certainly. That's a good question. That's something I ask myself as well. So this with the development in the inventory situation being it's real time development happening. So we are keeping a closing eye on the inventory. Rising inventory is great for the home buyers, but we are seeing a lot of price cuttings by sellers. I'm not suggesting that the slashing prices by sellers is going to send the market on the downward spiral, but it's certainly something worth keeping an eye on. And something else that's developing as well at the national level, because we don't see that in the data that we track, which is the delinquency rate. So a number of sources that I follow on the performance of loans, in particular FHA loans. There have been reports about steadily ticking up in serious delinquency rate. So that's something I'm keeping a close eye on. So and then there will be a number of policy issues worth tracking. We have a new HUD secretary under the new Trump administration. And then policies from the new administration, are worthwhile following any developments. And then there's this continued watch on the reprivatization of the GSEs. So that's another, a policy development that's worth following. And so, yeah, a number of things on the policy front that's going to keep us busy.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, thank you so much. And realtors are actually heading to the state capitol this Wednesday. It's our Realtor Day at the Capitol, so they're going to be hearing all about everything going on in the legislative session right now. So definitely some policies that we'll be watching as well. George, let's talk a little bit about mortgage interest rates, because again, this is something that we've been discussing for a while now, and people are watching those rates. What is your outlook for mortgage rates for this year?
Yeah, so we were finally starting to see mortgage rates start to come down. They've been a little bit volatile over the last few years. Obviously, in 2022, we saw kind of the full spectrum of mortgage rates. We started off the year, they were relatively low, and certainly at the end of 2021. It was that post-pandemic, really, the Federal Reserve did a lot to reduce interest rates, but I think that, a huge part of the story has also been that the Federal Reserve directly was purchasing mortgages, and now they're doing the exact opposite. So they increased interest rates to slow down inflation, and now they're offloading mortgages. So if you're somebody who is looking to either buy a house or refinance, you're competing with a lot of people for lending, but you're also competing with the Federal Reserve at the moment for that capital. And so the Federal Reserve indicated this past week that they were not going to slow down the rate at which they were kind of offloading mortgages. So what does that tell us for the future of mortgage rates? My general sense is that mortgage rates may continue to come down, but I do think they'll be somewhat elevated for a little bit longer. I wish I had better news for somebody looking to buy a house, but my general sense is that we're probably not going to see kind of an immediate, sharp decline in mortgage rates. And so, if you're somebody who's thinking about buying a house, I don't know that, delaying it is going to pay off in a significant way. You may be able to buy and refinance in the event that interest rates do decline, but my general sense is that mortgage rates aren't going to decline sharply in the near future, but over longer time horizons, they may start to go down and go down pretty significantly. But that time horizon is a little bit uncertain.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. If you have questions for Yanling or George, please type those into the comments, and we'll get to as many as we can. So far, I'm just seeing a lot of good mornings coming in from a lot of people. So if you have any questions, please type those in and we'll get to those. So Yanling, you mentioned inventory and that we're going to be keeping an eye on inventory. So far, are we seeing more listings, or is supply still relatively tight?
Yeah. So because of the slowdown in sales in January and February, the preliminary data in February, we are seeing a weakness in the sales. So at the same time, you have inventory, especially new listings, coming onto the market at fastest pace they have ever been in the last decade. So to give some perspective about this fast-growing inventory, right? And about the fast-growing new listings coming onto the market. If we look at the year-over-year change, which is month-to-month comparison, so in February we compare February 2025 to February 2024, and that change, that percent change, the rate of that new inventory, of that increase in active inventory, they are at levels that we have not seen in the last decade, maybe even longer. Because when I look at the data, I only started at a decade ago. So inventory level is at all-time high, and that's a supply, right? And that at the same time, if you look at home sales, for the state of Texas, nationwide, statewide, that year over year increase has been at about 2%. So it's relatively very muted pace. So for the home buyers in this spring market, the supply is very good, and a lot of choices, right? And with that kind of supply, it gives buyers negotiation power. Talk about price cutting. Try to meet the sellers halfway. And sellers are probably more willing to cut prices or give some degree of price concessions, because for the average home, the days spent on the market has increased to also levels not seen in the last decade. So it's for the buyers out there, it's a good time to shop around.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. George, kind of want to ask you a similar question to what I asked Yanling about just economic indicators. Are there economic indicators that we should be watching closely over the next few months?
Yeah, I'd say that there is one very important one from the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. They actually do a survey of businesses in the state of Texas, and they ask these businesses, will you be hiring in the next 6 months? And so, I had been a little bit concerned at the end of 2024. The percentage of companies that were hiring over the next 6 months had been steeply declining. And so I think that was kind of consistent with the broader economic outlook, not particularly inspiring. But in the recent months, this share has gone up significantly. And so I think that's great news, at least for Texas markets. It's hard to say that that's going to be the case, in the broader U.S. But if you're focused just on what's happening locally, my general sense is that hiring is going to pick up in the next several months, or at least, that's what the survey indicates. And, one of the most surprising things I've learned as an economist is that, you have these recessions and you see these sharp increases in unemployment. And, something that people might not fully understand, because layoffs kind of get a lot of these headlines, is that a huge component of the rise in unemployment is driven by a decline in hiring, and not necessarily an increase in people losing their jobs. Of course, people certainly do lose their jobs during a recession, but by far, the biggest impact is hiring. And so when I see that sharp increase in hiring, or expected hiring, by firms in the state of Texas, it makes me think that, at least here in Texas, we have a sort of positive economic outlook. And if there's any economic indicator that I'm looking at, in the months to come, it'll be that Dallas Fed survey of businesses. And of course, you can follow the research that we're doing. We publish a macroeconomic outlook, and we'll be following this in the months to come.
Very good. Thank you so much. Well, we had a few questions that came in. First, there was a comment actually from Jenny, who just said, thank you very much for presenting true facts. So we love that. Erica had a question that actually I think would be great for you to touch on. You kind of just did a little bit there, George, but she said, where should we direct buyers who fear recession? What's a good website to direct them to? So in regard to the recession conversation we were having earlier, where's a great resource?
Yeah, so, I definitely wouldn't read too much into a lot of headlines that you'll see. Just a word of caution that, a lot of times, the bad news, the scary news is what kind of makes headlines. I would say that with regards to recession likelihood, there are a number of places you could go. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis tracks, likelihood of recession. With regards to the broader economic outlook, I think that the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas is a fantastic resource for indicators. They have a tremendous amount of resources for the state of Texas. I don't know that there's a state within the Dallas Fed district that gets quite, the attention that the state of Texas does. So the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas website, they have a lot of economic indicators on there, and I think that is a fantastic resource. I know a lot of the people that work there, and they do great work. They take their work very seriously, and they try to inform people to the best that they can, because the reality is that so much of what we do is planning, and we need to have a good sense of the outlook to make decisions like whether or not we're going to move, whether if you're a small business owner, whether you're going to hire. And so I would take a close look at the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. They're always going to be very objective, whereas people in the news have maybe goals of getting readership. The Federal Reserve district banks are always trying to be objective.
Great, thank you. And we did share a link to the Federal Reserve of Dallas in the comments for anybody that is looking for that. We had a question, Yanling, that I think you can touch on. You mentioned that conditions are getting, they're good for buyers for the most part right now. Daniel's asking, are we entering more of a buyer's market due to the current and upcoming conditions? So you said it's getting better. Would you go so far as to call it a buyer's market?
Yes, I think that would not be. I think that would be a correct characterization about the spring market for two reasons. So when you look at the supply side, a lot of new listings, right? Just there's a lot of choices for the buyers. So that's on the supply side, and the new listings are coming on at faster pace as well. And then on the demand, I think sellers are fully aware that the demand side, the conditions of housing affordability has not changed much. We are still looking at high interest rates, which probably are not going to come down below the mid-6. And then, so with that constrained housing affordability, and then you have the repeat buyers, who a lot of the existing homeowners who are sitting on a low mortgage, they're very unlikely to move. I mean, unless circumstances dictate. If it's so with the demand from the repeat buyers constrained, and then you have the the new listings coming on the market at the fastest pace. So I think it's really a degree of conditions shifting towards buyers' favor. Okay. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We also had a question from Daniel about buyer and seller sentiment, and maybe you can take this one, George. He's asking, what are buyer and seller sentiments towards confidence in the economy right now?
Yeah, so I think that a lot of the surveys that track consumer sentiment have really not looked good in the last month or so. I think there's a lot of concern about tariffs. I think there is a lot of economic uncertainty right now. But at the same time, I would be cautious about looking too much into these consumer sentiment surveys. And the reason why I say that is because there is a sense in which we try to understand the economy through these sentiment surveys, and then there are actual sort of data points that we get that are more sort of market driven, that give us a better sense of what people are actually doing. And so if there's a disparity between those two things, you would generally want to look at what people are doing as opposed to how they're feeling. So the economic indicators that show what they're doing kind of illustrate a much more positive outlook. The fact that people are expressing concern doesn't necessarily kind of translate into the hard data that we're seeing. And so just to summarize that, we're kind of seeing some concerning things in consumer sentiment, but take it all with a grain of salt, because these things can turn around very quickly. And what the actual data is showing us is a little bit more positive than what the consumer sentiment surveys are showing.
Great, thank you. A question here for Yanling. George just mentioned tariffs. And with that, we kind of turn our thoughts to maybe home building. So do you foresee a rise in home building costs? This is for Yanling.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, I know George has done a lot of research on the building cost, but I can take a quick, go
Okay.
at it.
Well,
So on the housing cost, I mean, on the building cost, I guess that's really, the tariff situation is uncertain, right? Will it take effective April? Will it not? So it's really just so much uncertainty we don't know. And also another uncertainty is the details of the tariffs. And Jordan might be able to speak better for that, whether the tariffs increase is going to cover those lumber costs, those building material costs from Canada coming through the border. So if that is going to be affected by tariff, certainly. So really tariff is going to be key whether these building costs will increase in the coming month or year.
George, do you have anything you want to add there?
Yeah, so just a few things. First of all, with regards to tariffs, there's an estimated increase in home building costs of about $10,000 as a result of tariffs. So that could certainly range depending on the quantity of lumber that's used to build a specific house, but whether or not 10,000 is significant or not, it depends very much on the buyer. It depends on the resources that they have to allocate to a new house. But broadly speaking, we are starting to see some impact of tariffs, even if they aren't fully implemented at the moment, because the reality is that lumber is not only bought, on spot markets. A lot of it is bought in futures markets, and so we're starting to see futures markets really start to creep up. But we haven't seen that translated quite yet into things like the producer price index. But we're starting to hear some things from home builders indicating that they are starting to increase sort of the price that they are charging for a home as a result of tariffs. And if they're sustained, I think that we can expect that to be a sustained increase in the cost of building a house.
Okay, thank you very much. Yanling, I wanted to talk a little bit about the markets around Texas. Are there any specific Texas markets that are outperforming or others that are maybe lagging behind?
Yeah, that's a great question. So as I was mentioned earlier, that for home sales, for example, in January, statewide home sales increased 2%, right? But underneath that number, there's a mixed performance if you look across the 26 metros in the state. So coming on top on that list, I can name at least 5 metros that had double-digit growth in home sales in January. So these are, Tyler, Amarillo, and I think I jotted down, here. So Abilene, Wichita Falls, so that covered 4 already. And the 5th is College Station. Surprise, surprise, right? So these are the 5 strong metros where sales have been growing at double digits. And then coming in the middle are Houston. Sales growth in January is slightly below the state average at about 1.3%. And the other big urban hubs like Dallas is 1.6% below the state average. But San Antonio and Austin had done pretty well at the start of the year. Sales in San Antonio at about over 5%. And even Austin, despite prices continue to weaken in early part of 2025, the sales has grown by 4% in January. Um, and then on the bottom, on the other end of the spectrum, there are states that are seeing declines in home sales. So let me see the list. Okay, Victoria, Texarkana, Odessa, and Sherman-Denison. So these are the ones had seen modest declines in home sales. So yeah, at this point, it's a mixture of housing activities this spring.
Okay, thank you so much. So Houston kind of in the middle, but below the state average. Thank you for that. Kind of similar, we're asking about markets, but what about the price ranges? Are you seeing disparities between, maybe like the luxury market or lower priced homes? What are you seeing there?
Yes, so that's a great question because overall we are seeing sales activities picking up, but really that pickup, a modest pickup, was driven by an active market for the high end market.
Okay.
So if you break down the price tiers into below 250,000, in the middle from 250 to 500, and then make the higher end tier to be pricing above 750, $750,000. The highest end market are doing the best. So they are seeing solid growth at about 10%, whereas the lower tiers sales are pretty weak. So real, it's again it comes to affordability, right? So the price tier for low to medium, moderate income home buyers, they are struggling. Inflation, high mortgage rates, and rising carrying costs of property insurance and property taxes. So all that is constraining low to middle income home buyers.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you to Jenny for that excellent question. I know we're over time, but I have a few more questions for you both. George, you mentioned earlier to avoid the headlines when it comes to certain things. What is something that the media isn't talking about enough when it comes to maybe the economic status or the housing market? And Yanling, I'll come to you next with this question.
Yeah. So we've recently learned that immigration is having a much bigger impact on the state economy than we might have anticipated. If you look at population growth in the state of Texas over the past few years, it has been much higher than the rest of the United States. A lot of people are moving to Texas. We see it in the data. We see that they're coming from other states, they're coming from other countries. But the reality is that you can break it down into people coming from other states and people coming from other countries. And what we saw over the past few years, in particular 2021, 2022, and 2023, is a lot of people coming from other states. That's where we got a tremendous portion of our population growth. But as the economy started to slow down, as interest rates started to increase, people started to move a lot less. A large portion of our population growth came from other countries. And so we have brand new data from the census indicating that just a huge portion of our 2024 population growth came from other countries. And so, and not so much from other states. And so, as you look forward, trying to get a sense of how Texas might grow in the future, pay close attention to what happens to immigration, and you'll get a better sense of, whether we'll be able to sustain our growth moving forward or whether it might slow down a little bit. So I would say that, if there's a headline that is really significant that we're, may or may not be getting the right amount of attention, I'd say it would be immigration.
Thank you so much. Yanling, same question to you. What is something the media is not talking about enough when it comes to the housing market?
Yeah, so specific to the media, covering the Texas housing market, as George was alluding to about the immigration, domestic immigration, international immigration, migration coming to the state of Texas. Well, one big reason is the cheap homes, relatively cheap homes, right? So I think we need to remind ourselves that home prices in Texas are still relatively affordable.
Mm-hmm.
I moved from out of state myself just this year, so yes, and I find the prices here are affordable,
Mm-hmm.
a lot more affordable than where I moved from. Um, so I think we should not lose sight of that. What makes Texas, great and attractive to the migration. Um, but yes, prices have become, high. They're high. They have never been this high, and rates are high. Affordability is crisis, but um, these are, I think, these are manifestations of bigger issues that that shape the housing market it is today. So really, I think we should also not lose sight of what has brought the housing market to where it is today. I mean, to have a full understanding of where we are, it's a very we have to look at different the housing finance, the supply side, you name it. So just to be example, the zoning laws, right? Texas has relatively less restrictive zoning laws that make the new development faster, quicker, and cheaper, and more able to respond to demand. So I want see more kind of stories about how Texas zoning laws is doing a great service or good service to the Texas housing market, because we are seeing new developments popping up everywhere, new housing, more choices for consumers. So on the zoning laws, I think that's something I would like to see more coverage to give to make the community and residents more informed about their local zoning laws, and join the dialogues with the local policymakers to make the space we share and live more affordable and more and better.
Thank you so much. I have another question for both of you. Just if you were, and both of you have kind of mentioned little things here and there throughout this interview, but I'd like to hear just kind of a formal answer on it. And we'll start with you on this one, Yanling. If you were advising a home buyer or a seller right now, what would your top piece of advice be to them?
Well, that applies to myself as well, because I am currently in the spring market looking for a house to buy, but I never thought about it that way. What advice would I give to myself, right, as a buyer? So what would that be? I guess I would tell myself and other buyers out there to be flexible. The inventory is shifting to buyer's advantage. So a lot of choices, and be flexible, and know your market as well, right? And do the comps. Look at the comps. And and be willing to walk away if you don't find the deal too exciting, and if the seller is not willing to meet you halfway. So yeah, a lot of good choices, a lot of homes out there, good inventory. So it's good news for the buyers. So just stay flexible.
Yeah, makes sense. There's some more inventory, so you don't have to commit to the deal if it's not something you really want. What about you, George? What piece of advice would you give to a home seller or a buyer?
Yeah, so kind of to build off of what Yanling was saying, I think that to summarize it best, you're going to have to face a reality. If you are a home buyer, you may have been waiting for interest rates to go down. There may be something keeping you from buying a home. I would say that really, it's not my anticipation that interest rates are going to go up over long periods of time. I could be wrong, but I don't think that interest rates are going to go up. I also don't think that they're going to go down. But it's important to note that if you're waiting for interest rates to go down, it may be the case that home values are going to go up. And so, if you're waiting for interest rates to go down, you may end up having to pay more for a house. And so, if you feel like now is the right time to buy, and you might just be waiting for better economic conditions, you may be pigeonholing yourself a little bit by waiting. So on the other side, if you're a seller, I know it's a tough pill to swallow, but your home may not be worth today quite what it was, maybe 6 months to a year ago. It may have gone down in value, and I think that's tough for some home sellers to take. It's not the very aggressive market that we saw a few years ago, and if you go in expecting that, you might be a little bit disappointed. So be realistic, like Yanling said. Make sure that you understand the market, and don't try to pigeonhole yourself by having unrealistic expectations. So take it as it is, and make your decisions accordingly.
Very good. And I might add, work with a great realtor so they can guide you. Very good. Well, yeah, very good. So, I know we went over time just a little bit today, and I apologize for that, but it was such a great conversation. We had so many good questions coming in, and I know we didn't get to answer every question, so I apologize if we didn't get to your question, but we had so much to get through. I'd love to hear some final thoughts from you both. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today that you didn't get to mention yet? And George, we can go with you first on this one.
Yeah, so I would just say, we didn't get into tariffs too much, but, keep an eye on that. April 2nd is the day that a lot of tariffs go into effect. That'll give a sense of how we might see the market for new homes kind of materialize moving forward. But also keep an eye on inflation. It's hard to overstate the extent to which the Federal Reserve changing interest rates has impacted, every aspect of real estate markets. And so if inflation starts to come down, we can expect the Federal Reserve will start to bring interest rates down. And I think that would be, overall very good for real estate markets. But my advice is just, keep watching what the Federal Reserve does with regards to interest rate. The Federal Reserve is going to respond to inflation, so keep an eye on that as well.
Thank you. Yanling, same question to you. Any final thoughts that you'd want to mention?
Yeah, I share the same thoughts with George, because at this point, the Fed has decided not to cut the interest rate again. So their next meeting would be, I believe, will be in June. So interest rate is going to be on pause, and Fed is on pause. And the reason Fed is on pause is they are waiting for incoming economic data on inflation, economic activity. So if they see any signs of weakening, we might, get our next rate cut. But I think at this point in time, the Fed's assessment is that the economy is still on the solid ground. I remember before going into the year, there's the strength of the economy was kind of a huge surprise for the Fed and for the policymakers. So have things changed in the last 2 months, right? So really, the economy is a thing to watch, because that's going to impact the policymakers' decisions on rate cuts, which ultimately affect the housing market.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, again, thank you to you both for your time this morning. I thought this was a great conversation. Again, there was a few questions we didn't get to, but we would love to have both of you back, maybe separately in the future, so we have more time to dive in a little deeper with you both, if that's something you'd be interested in.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christina.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It'd be our pleasure.
Great, thank you. Well, that is it for this Member Focus Monday. We do not have a Member Focus Monday next week, but we will be back on April 7th at 9 a.m. So we'll see you then. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.